So is it possible? There's a gentleman in the line called Critical Thinker, and he's a filibuster guy, and we need to wrap it up. Do you want to get Critical's views tonight too? And Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson. Good day and good evening again, and welcome. State your name and then your question and your concern.
Yes, my name is C. Allen Johnson. I represent the collective intelligence of the Alliance for Change, a community, civic, social, and political activist group. Just, Mr. Thompson, I know you say I filibuster.
You're my favorite guy on radio. The Bahamian people know you. That's
yes,
okay.
The word filibuster comes from someone who extends debate with the sense of denying other individuals the opportunity to speak.
No. You're my good friend, though. You're my good friend.
When I speak to enlighten.
Certainly.
I speak to enlighten and encourage individuals to expand.
And when they grab the mic, you know you're in trouble. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I share my thoughts, not because I think it will change the minds of people who think differently. I share my thoughts to show people who already think like me that they are not alone. I am speaking to the Constitution Commission. Many of the suggestions I've heard on radio, televisions, I would support. The problem I have is the level of intellectual discourse that is allowed to permeate these discussions. I am calling upon the Commission to extend its consultation period to a minimum of 3 years from now. What happens is that the Constitution represents 100% of the Bahamas public. For those that I think would immediately affect the Constitution, we could go from the year of 12 years old up until death, and that probably runs around 270,000 individuals out of 350 or 400,000 if you want to count the people who we say not here. And the reason I say that is that we have so many misinformation and disinformation that goes on in these discussions. Things concerning laws rather than constitution, discussion concerning policies, procedures, etc. And clearly we cannot allow a constituent to make a decision that affects all of us, not just now, but well into the future, based on their misconception concerning what they think is rather than what it really is. Use an example. We talk about the gambling issue. Many times individuals say the Constitution prohibits individuals from owning and gambling in a casino. The Constitution makes allowances for a law to be created that contains that discrimination. That discrimination is not in the Constitution. But I've heard politicians, our leadership, promote that concept. Clearly, if the Constitution gives you the allowance for that law to be created, it also gives you room for that law to be removed. Just because the Constitution gives me a right to kick my dog, it don't mean I need to exercise that particular right. And so clearly, that is not necessarily a constitutional issue, and though it is one that needs to be addressed. But permeates throughout it, to the Constitution, is issues. For instance, we've never had a real constitutional debate in our country. I'm embarrassed for the legal fraternity in our college. I'm embarrassed for the college of the Bahamas, and even small groups, to be able to have this discussion and test some of these issues concerning the very right of citizenship. Okay, we have discussion on citizenship. Let's change the Constitution. No one has ever had a discussion concerning derivative. Change the Constitution and I will become a multimillionaire, because I will register a cruise ship and have every person born on that cruise ship be granted citizenship. And those people will be eligible for derivative citizenship for the entire country once I show that they are related. See, these are the type of discussions we need to have. When we said we should never have a smorgasbord type environment for constitutional change. We should choose issues, have a national dialogue, a debate of the intellectuals and non-so-intellectuals, and let's talk about how it affects, how it applies to the law, how it applies to other parts of the Constitution. How changing this will affect that. We need to have those different things. And let's use anything. I understand what you're saying, sir.
My body language is speaking. I haven't said a word.
Yes, I understand that, right? You know, if you have a problem, you have to think. Let's use an example. I hear you talk about something called gender. Your Constitution board, I don't know whether it's your chairman or somebody, even says that no one came and talked about same-sex marriage, etc., being inserted in the Constitution. But clearly, the language from 2002 to now defines gender as a wide-range type environment for which we sign on to these world agreements. Here's what it says. It says, gender refers to socially constructed roles, behavior, activities, and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. Sex refers to the biological and physiological characteristics that define men and women. Male and female are sex categories, while masculine and feminine are gender categories. And we can have a wide-ranging debates concerning what gender means by simply saying, oh, we need to have a gender discussion. We need to have a truthful discussion.
Okay, now, Mr. Allen, I really need you to focus now and wrap it up.
This is why what we need is real, intelligent discourse.
That's right.
Because, you know, like you say, you hear the talk shows. Do you know I did a documentary of the talk shows, there's only 48 callers? 48. Shaping public decision. I went to many of them. They never possessed a constitution. They get their information by what somebody else told them, who haven't read the Constitution either, and who is misinformed. And so I encourage the Constitution to extend the debate to a wider diaspora, not only just here, but also throughout the world. Let's put some of these in the front of the College of the Bahamas, and let's put singular issues, and let's have a debate and a submission so that we can have ideas and put through. Get rid of the smorgasbord of what we want to have 10, 20, 30 things that they can't comprehend one. I can only imagine them trying to comprehend 10. Okay, and let's begin to have what is a true discussion. Every decision we make in this Constitution affects Bahamians unborn.
See, Allen, you are now.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Mr. Chairman, I know there's one issue that comes out of the concerns that perhaps raised by Mr. Allen as regards the limitation of your terms of reference and there being any limitation in terms of time frame. I know that an extension was given until November. What's your essential take on that concern about an extension of this conversation?
Well, you know, this is the sort of thing that you could end up discussing ad infinitum. But the Commission is to a large extent bound by its terms of reference, and our reporting deadline, as you quite correctly pointed out, has already been extended, and the current deadline is the 30th of June, and we have every intention of meeting that deadline. But in response to C. Allen's point, I go back to something I said at the beginning. This does not mean that this is the end of public discussion. There are going to be many, many more opportunities over an extended period of time to discuss these things. And I think he's probably right on one point, that it would be a mistake, and I've said this many times before, to try to have just one referendum on all of the constitutional issues. So that's just not practical. And there's no great rush for this. You know, we've waited 40 years to get to this point. And there's really no reason why we couldn't end up having a series of referenda over an extended period of time. It's a question of prioritizing the changes, deciding which ones are more important than others, and which one should therefore be put on the ballot paper before the others. But there's no great rush for this. And so this is an ongoing process. Someone has suggested that perhaps we need to institutionalize this and that there should be a kind of permanent constitutional commission. You change the membership, of course, but so that the Constitution is kept under fairly constant review. Again, that's something which has been suggested and something we'll be looking at as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.